All right, finishing this up. So number 9, we're given two complex numbers, 3 minus 2i, and another one is 4 plus 5i. Again, a complex number is just when you have a real number and imaginary number put together, so they call it complex. But the idea is I'm supposed to multiply this to this, and so that I just have one complex number. And they want you to recall that the square root of -1 is I. What's going to be more important for this one is what I squared is worth. So if I just take the square root of -1 equals I, and I turn it into I squared, so I'm going to square the I, which means I have to square the square root of -1. The square and the square root on the left side cancel each other out, and you'll need to know that -1 is worth I squared. So let's go ahead and start this multiplying. I am going to add the opposite here. And first I'm going to distribute. I'm going to have 3 go over here and visit these two. So 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5i is 15i. And then I'm going to multiply the -2i to these two. So I get a -8i, which I'll just stack with this other one because I'm going to have to combine them in just a little bit. And -2i and 5i is a -10i squared. So right now I have 12, and then I have 7i, and I have -10i squared. Well, focusing on this -10i squared, those are actually just multiplying. And if you just remember what we just got done saying, that I squared is worth -1. So I can take this -10, replace the I squared with the -1 that it's worth, and then this term here actually just becomes worth 10. So now it's 12 plus 7i plus 10. And then I can take this 10 and combine it with the 12, which will give me 22 and 7i. And then this would be my answer. Okay? All right, last question. So Buckingham Fountain in Chicago. The height and feet of the water above the main fountain nozzle can be modeled by, and then we have this equation over here. And t is the time in seconds since the water's left the nozzle, and so h is the height, and so find the value of h of t. So what I'm going to do is go to my problem and just see when h is 2 and what my answer is. So if you notice here, you can actually use the graphing calculator if you want. If you don't want to use the graphing calculator, then I'll show you another way you could do this. Anyway, so I'm going to go switch over to the graphing calculator screen, and I'm going to type in the equation. All right. So hold on one second while I switch over. So you would go to the upper toolbox on your screen and switch over, but just one moment. All right, so I'm on the graphing calculator screen, and what I don't actually have to use the graphing calculator here. It's probably just easier to use the left box that you see where the 1 is highlighted in blue, and just go to my original problem, which is the -16t squared plus 90t, and replace those t's with the 2 that's mentioned here. Oops, let me switch colors. So I'm just going to go wherever I see a t here and put a 2 in it. And when I do that, I will be wrapping it in parentheses. So going back to that other screen, I'm going to start with the -16, and then in parentheses, I'm just going to put 2, and then it was squared, so I'm going to square it. And then I'm going to add to that, hold on, I got to look back at the equation I got on paper, plus 90, and then back in parentheses, I'm just going to put the 2. And if you guys notice, in that box, it will say equals 116, okay? Going back to the question, if t is 2, if the time is 2 after 2 seconds, the height of the water is 116. So which of these 4 options says that? So the first one's 116 seconds. Well, 116 is actually, what was it? Does it say feet? It's feet. So this one's out. The next one, 2 seconds after the fountain is turned on, the water's at a height of 116. The other ones don't even have the correct number, 244 or 224. So our answer is B, and that is your practice capstone test.